The women's basketball win streak comes to an end at 5.
While the men start a win streak of its own, which stands at 3.
And I'm Kayla Levine, live from Liacouras Center. I'll be discussing women's basketball and recap their 5-game winning streak.
And I'm Miles Bailey at the studio set. Later in the show, I will talk about the Temple Coaching Parliament. It starts and ends with the defensive team and its 3 coaches. OwlSports Update is live and it starts right now.
Welcome to another edition of OwlSports Update. I'm Paddy Heckard.
And I'm Natalie Koranda. While we've hit the halfway mark of the semester, we have 2 teams reaching the end of their seasons next month.
The men have 3 games left. The women have 2 games left before the start of the postseason in Texas.
It was one of the biggest games of the season. Dollar dogs, free t-shirts, and a battle for first place in the AAC. The Temple Owls came into Wednesday just 1 game ahead of both North Texas and Tulsa. As luck would have it, that same Tulsa Golden Hurricane team was in for town this late season matchup. A large crowd for a competitive game with over 2,000 fans in the stands. Owls playing early from behind early on, but not for long. Tierra East sinks 2 of her 16. The Owls did trail for much of the first quarter. Tulsa's Delaney Crawford nails a 3-pointer. Tulsa's Tamaya Poindexter sells the flop. She was almost unstoppable with 30. And Demi Washington in the final 2 minutes of the half. Then on the break, Aaliyah Nelson with the left hand. Nelson finished with 16, and the Owls led by 3 at the half. At the end of the 3, Temple up by 1. Tulsa searching for a lead misses, but Maddie Cartwright turns an offensive rebound into 2. Cartwright with 11. And into the 4th, Aaliyah Nelson catches the pass and sinks in a 3. But the Owls struggled on defense in the 4th, giving up 30 points. That's more points they gave up than in the first and third quarters combined. The Golden Hurricanes blow out of Philly with a win, 76-67.
Well, we put ourselves in this position. We worked real hard to get here, but we didn't work hard enough to stay here. And we gotta play tough defense for 4 quarters and not get our heads down and just kind of self-destruct and self-sabotage. That 4th quarter was 30. We let them score 30 points in the 4th quarter. That tells me that our defense was not up to par.
There is good and bad news when you look at these standings. The good news, Temple is still in a 3-way tie for first place in the AAC. They have 2 games to go against East Carolina and Florida Atlantic.
Now, the bad news. The Owls don't own the tiebreaker with either North Texas or Tulsa. If the season were to end today, Temple would grab the 3rd seed. Both Tulsa and North Texas have 2 games left as well. There's still time in the final week of the regular season for some teams to move around.
The women have come a long way since last season. Our very own Kayla Levine is live from Liacouras Center to talk about the changes in that performance. Hi, Kayla.
Thanks, Natalie. Even with this loss, it's important to remember that Temple is still tied for first place, as you mentioned. Many thought this wasn't possible at the beginning of the season in November. Much of this success is thanks to a 5-game winning streak in February. No matter how the season ends, it's hard to argue that the Temple women's basketball team is on the right track, and it's all happening pretty quickly. The Owls were picked to finish 9th in the AAC preseason poll, but come late February, Temple sits in first place in the conference with 2 regular season games to go. Part of this run was highlighted this past weekend with a Texas sweep of UTSA and Rice.
Definitely made a lot of adjustments in our defense. We've been playing really solid defense this last couple games, and I think that's what really got us through the first place in the conference.
After a 5-game winning streak, the Owls were able to make it up to the #1 spot in the AAC. That Texas sweep also guaranteed the Owls at least a top 4 seed, which gives them 2 byes and moves them right into the quarterfinal game once the postseason starts in March.
We have a lot of people that can score. Everybody can really get buckets on the team. It's just coming from everywhere.
Continue to play how we are playing right now, which is sticking to our defensive principles and just playing hard and working harder than the other team.
11 wins last season, and 1 year later, the Owls are looking to break the 20-win season and maybe not only double their win total 1 year later, but also turn this season into a title-winning campaign. You can catch the women's basketball game next Sunday at East Carolina, where they're trying to continue to do the same thing they've been doing all season, which is win a regular season title. Live from the Leah Corus Center, I'm Kayla Levine. Back to you guys at the desk.
It's 3 in a row for the men's team as Temple took down Rice on Wednesday night. Rice, a team that averages 72 points per game this season, was held to just 43 points. Rice shot just 26% from the field and made only 1 3-pointer. Isaiah Miller led the Owls in scoring with 16 points on 50% field goal shooting. This 3-game win streak matches their season high. Now, just days earlier, the Owls looked to complete their season sweep against Wichita State. Steve Settle III finished with 13 points and gets the easy 2 in the first. Now, late in the second, Wichita State leads by 2, but Temple gets the stop. Jordan Riley was the lead scorer for Temple and sends the Owls to OT with a layup. In overtime, 68-64 Temple. Xavier Bell finished as Wichita State leading scorer with 17 points, including this 2 in overtime. Now, 30 seconds left with a 2-point lead for Temple. Isaiah Miller tries to beat the shot clock with the 3, but it's no good. But Shane Dezzoni is there for the tip-in. Dezzoni's 14 points and 11 rebounds won him AAC and Philly Big 5 honors this week as Temple comes out on top, 72-66.
Joining us on the desk is Courts in Session host Jake Gabel, who is an expert at all things basketball.
Welcome back to the desk, Jake. Thank you for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
So, aside from the record, what are the major differences you see in men's basketball this season compared to last?
I mean, there's a lot. It's easier to say what hasn't changed than what has changed. Heiser Miller and Jaleel White are almost the only guys still remaining from last year's team. And then as the coaching staff goes, it's the same story. Chris Clark, the assistant coach, is really the only guy still left there. Adam Fisher coming in for Aaron McKee brings in a new staff and almost an entirely new roster through the transfer portal.
Jake, what are your expectations for Temple as they head in or are going into the AAC tournament?
Well, currently they sit tied for 3rd worst in the tournament, but with the new AAC conference rules, they have the bottom 4 playing an extra game in order to get that conference title run. So they'll most likely match up against UTSA or Wichita State, 2 teams they've already beaten this year. So they could win that game, but after that, it'll be very unexpected for a longer run.
And how long do you think it'll take for Temple to be a contender again, or do you think that is anyone's guess?
I mean, you said it right there, Paddy. I think it could be anyone's guess. If I had to put a number on it, maybe 2 or 3 seasons. I'd love to see a women's-like turnaround in Diane Richardson's second year. They had a huge jump, and you see what they're doing this year. But that team had way more pieces. I think Temple's stars in the future are either still in high school or at other schools and will come through the transfer portal. But near the end of his first season, Adam Fisher is trying to bring Temple back to the days of 20-win seasons and postseason runs. But the climb to the back is going to be a steep one. My Courts in Session co-anchor Hayden Mandel and I sat down with Coach Fisher to learn more about the first-year head coach. Here's a small our interview.
Conference teams with also first-year head coaches, Charlotte, South Florida, they're at the top of the conference. When do you see Temple getting to that point?
You know, we got to keep working, and you know, I think every situation's different. You know, coach has done an amazing job at Charlotte, was there for 5-6 years, was able to keep a lot of the guys together. You know, you look at South Florida, I mean, it's probably one of the best stories in college basketball. And, you know, coach was able to bring 3 of his best players from Kennesaw State, who have been 3 of the best players in our league. You know, I think we got to grow and build. And I think, you know, that's something we've talked about. You know, the results aren't where we want it to be, and I know that, but I'm happy with our effort. I think we're building our identity and how you have to play on North Broad Street. So I can't give you an exact, here's where it's going to come, but, you know, we want to win this year, and they're not where we want to be. We know what we have left, and we approach it the same approach as every game, same way, and I think you have to treat it like that. You know, Wichita State is our next game. It's the biggest game of the year for us because it's our next game, and that's our only focus.
Pretend me and Hayden are 2 of the best high school prospects in the country. What are you trying to tell us to come here to Temple?
Be a part of one of the most winningest programs in all of college basketball. There's nothing like having success in Philadelphia, whether it's the Eagles, the Phillies, you know, Temple. When you see the city come around you, they respect blue collar. We're going to play blue collar. We're going to compete. We want to keep hanging banners up in the Leah Center. That's something that's really important to us. You want to get a great education, this is the spot for you. If you're worried about NIL and you're worried about your minutes and your points, don't come here. Not the right school for you. But if you want to be a part of something that you can call home forever, this is where you want to be.
3 straight wins and an electric pitch like that, you can see why he was named the head coach of the team. And he personally has me debating whether or not I should try out for his squad. That was only 2 minutes of a roughly 20-minute interview, and the full thing will be posted to our YouTube at OwlSports Update in the coming days.
Well, thank you, Jake, for joining us so much. Next time we'll see you is down in Texas at the postseason tournament, so safe travels to you.
Thank you, and yeehaw!
When we come back, we'll take a behind-the-scenes look at the work that the marketing and communications teams do before game day for Temple basketball.
Plus, we have the latest on the lacrosse team's last 2 matchups, both against nationally ranked teams. All of this when we return in 90 seconds.
Welcome back. Hours of work are put into the men's basketball games, but much of it aren't done by people who have never had a basketball in their hand. The marketing and communications team worked to create a fun atmosphere come tip-off for all in the stands. On game day, the men's basketball team gets its work done on the court. But for Temple's marketing team and communications team, their work is done off of it, before, during, and after games.
We make sure that there's a flip card, which just basically is the rosters and schedules for both of the teams, and our game notes need to be prepared. We also need to prepare the full credential list.
Each athletic team has a communications director. Cooper handles men's basketball. He travels, organizes press conferences, and provides team notes to the media for away games as well. Then there's the marketing team. Its job is just as important, but this group does all of its work at home.
My responsibility is to make sure that all of our students know about our upcoming events, especially with men's and women's basketball.
And once fans are in the stands, the work continues. Katie and company are in charge of keeping the fans entertained when the ball stops moving. Free t-shirts, dance-offs on the big screen, and shooting contests to keep the fans loud and rowdy for Temple basketball. Not every game is cause for celebration, but Temple's game versus UTSA was a party no matter the score. They celebrated Hooter's birthday with many of his mascot friends. It's one of the major marketing campaigns during the season, along with the whiteout game earlier this month. Both events brought in over 4,000 fans to the Leah Center. Even though marketing and communications have small teams in numbers, their work and effort is noticed on a daily basis. Just 3 games left for men's basketball, but the work won't stop there for marketing and communications. Both teams will be preparing for next season's events and schedule during the offseason.
The lacrosse team kicked off this season undefeated in the first 4, but the last 2 have gotten much more challenging with back-to-back games against nationally ranked teams.
First, Temple hosting 13th ranked Penn at Howard Field on Wednesday. Gracie Smith started the scoring for Penn in the first period, her only goal of the game. Just a minute later, Penn is back with another goal. Nikki Miles gets her first of 2 goals this game. She leads Penn with 9 on the season. Moving into the second period, Amelia Wright brings Temple within one, 3-2 Penn. Now, in the third, Penn is pulling away. Maria Themilis gets her first goal of the season to make it 6-3 Penn. In the fourth, Keely Block makes it 9-4 Quakers with 10 minutes to go. Amelia Wright gets her second of the game, but it's too late for Temple. Final score, 11-6 Penn.
But before Penn, there was another smart school in town. Yale at the Temple Sports Complex, ranked 21st in the country. Belle Mastro-Pietro sends one of her 2 goals in on the net. The Bulldogs were left wide open multiple times, and they benefited Taylor Elverson with 1. The Owls only found the net once in the entire first half of the game, which was different compared to what we saw in their first 4 wins of the year. By the third, the Owls' defense looks tighter, but not tight enough for Yale's Everson to sneak by with another. Mastro-Pietro, who is ranked first on the team with points, waits on the 8 and then attacks the goal, putting in the last of her 2. But Yale had an answer for Temple and then some. Chloe Conahan puts it in. The Owls fall badly in this one, 13-5 against the Bulldogs. Up next, it's a bird battle. St. Joseph's will take a quick trip to an unfamiliar nest and play the Owls at Howarth Field on Sunday. The Owls have won the last 3 matchups, and this season the Hawks have only won 1 out of 3 games. This marks the 27th time in program history that these city foes have faced off. It is now time for another break. On the other side, OwlSports Update's Miles Bailey joined us at the studio set with news on the fencing squad.
We also have a new edition of Who's on Our Radar featuring an interview with Samantha Nanier from women's tennis. See you in just 90 seconds. Welcome back. Temple Fencing has made a new addition to its coaching staff, and the team didn't have to look very far. OwlSports Update's Miles Bailey is at the studio set to tell us more. Hey, Miles.
Thanks, guys. I had the opportunity to interview head coach Jenny Salmon and assistant coach Fiona Fong. These two have a lot in common while it starts and ends with their time on North Broad.
The Temple fencing team is a parliament. 3 coaches leading the Owls, all Temple graduates. Head coach Jenny Salmon graduated from Temple in 1995, and since her arrival, she's kept assistant coach Tasia Ford, a 2014 graduate, and then just a few weeks ago hired assistant coach Fiona Fong, a member of the Temple class of 2018.
The 3 of us are, representing a program that we grew up in, that we're proud of, and for us, it's really important to acknowledge the women who have come through the program and have continued in the sport.
Jenny Salmon became just the 2nd head coach in program history after former head coach Dr. Nikki Frank retired after 50 seasons. Frank really started this parliament. She earned her master's from Temple in 1975.
I didn't know at the time that I was here as an athlete or have it in my mind that this is where I would be 30 years later, although I think Nikki, Coach Frank, did know that or had an idea of that.
Added to the staff earlier this month, assistant coach Fiona Fong comes back to the program that she loved while playing. This time around, she's looking to carry that love for Temple fencing as a coach.
Without Temple fencing, I would be a completely different person, and I know that. I would be less confident.
No other Temple sport has this lineage of Temple grads taking over as coaches for a single sport, but it's worked for fencing. This team is one of the leading NCAA programs, often ranked in the top 10 nationally.
The Temple Invitational was hosted at McGonigal Hall this past Sunday. The 9th-ranked Owls went 1-4 against ranked opponents, with their only victory coming against 11th-ranked St. John's. The biggest highlight of the day was Margarita Carterero, picking up her 200th career victory. She led the team with 8 victories. Freshman Lauren Johnson and junior Eva Ventura followed it up with 7 wins. In the saber competition, Johnson was key in the team, earning a 6-3 victory against St. John's as she went 3-0. Anastasia Inkovsky managed 4 wins in the foil competition in her last home event. Temple will travel to Madison, New Jersey this weekend to compete at the National Intercollegiate Women's Fencing Championships. That's all for me. Reporting from the studio set, I'm Miles Bailey.
For this week's edition of Who's on Our Radar, we are excited to welcome Samantha Ninier from the women's tennis team to the show, tuning in live from Zoo. Thank you, Samantha, for joining us.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Samantha, you and Maiko Uchijima recently moved up in the national doubles rankings to number 19 and first in the AAC. How much pressure does that ranking add?
Yeah, this is my first season being ranked nationally, and that just adds more confidence and excitement going to every match. And we've played together for 2 semesters now, and we just get more comfortable with each other. So I think there's less pressure now.
So tennis can be, next question, tennis can be a physical but a mental game as well. How do you prepare for the season as well as challenging matchups further on into the year?
Yeah, it's definitely really tough physically and mentally, but we have the same routine every day, and I think that helps with managing the physical endurance. And we also have TUL from Temple Athletics, and some of us have been utilizing that as well. So that's a good tools to cope with the season.
Samantha, so you're a graduate student, which means your time at the Nest is almost finished. Is there anything personal or specific goals that you hope or want to accomplish during these last few weeks?
Yeah, of course, we're in the run for the Nationals, NCAA, at the end of the season. So that's my personal goal for my last year as a student athlete. And of course, for a team, I'm hoping we can go far in conference. And yeah, that's the goal.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back in 90 seconds for our last block of the show.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Welcome back to OwlSports Update. Temple Club Baseball is 8-2 following the end of its fall schedule, but has 7 more spring games before it finishes its first Division I season. OwlSports Update's Anthony Rossioli has more on the team as it enters the second half of the season.
When you win just about every game in Division II in 2023, it's time for a promotion. Temple's club baseball team made a name for itself, finishing 13-2 last spring in conference, and ended up losing in the national title game. With the promotion comes expectations. The Owls aim to focus on key factors to improve the teamwork.
I feel like we make a lot of mental errors, and as soon as we eliminate that, I feel like we'll be pretty good.
Cleaning it up in the field, making sure we're not making silly mistakes. We had a few of those go by us last semester, but we're working hard every day to improve that.
Temple's club baseball team last semester switched from NCBA Division II to Division I. The team has been hard at work practicing 3 days a week since January 29th. As the team heads into their second D1 semester, they take on Drexel for their home opener on March 24th. But the biggest game on the schedule comes on the very last day of the regular season, April 29th against Delaware.
Number 1 opponent that we're kind of eyeing and circling on the schedule coming up in a little over a month. So we're ready for that series.
Temple became a club team in 2014 when its varsity team had its funding cut by the athletic department. But this game is still serious to those who put on a Temple uniform.
So we just asked the guys to come in and give it your all during the short amount of time that we had to practice during the week.
The team will continue to practice and improve its skills as they prepare to make its first run to NCBA Division I playoffs on May 10th.
Thanks, Anthony, but that's all the time we have this show.
Have a great spring break, Owls.